Hey everyone, I hope you are having a wonderful day so far. I am just dropping this special little clip into all the episodes. So, no matter what episode you're listening to, this is actually pretty current as of July 2024. I wanted to come on here and just say a big thank you to Earworthy because the Life Shift podcast was just named the best overall podcast of the year in the first Earworthy Independent Podcast Awards. And you've probably seen some articles written about the Life Shift podcast before, written by Earworthy. And now he is launching from his online publication, he is launching these yearly winners of independent podcast awards. And these are specifically for indie podcasters. We are those that wear all the hats. We create the show. Some people write the show. We're producers, sound engineers. We troubleshoot all the tech. We do any kind of research if we need to. We host the shows. We distribute the shows. We do all the things that relate to our shows because we love it. And it's so nice to see my name in a list with some other amazing podcasts like Multispective, which won Best Life Lessons Podcast. Salad with a Side of Fries won Best Health Podcast. Bippity Boppity Business won Best Business Advice Podcast. And there are so many more. And so I just want to come on here and say thank you to Earworthy for not only doing these awards every year and just honoring some of us indie podcasters that sometimes feel like we're just shouting into the void, but we're not. We're just doing what brings us joy, and hopefully through that work it brings other people joy. In my case, for the Life Shift, I hope that each episode finds the ears that needed to hear it the most so that they feel a little less alone in their circumstance. But also, Earworthy writes all these amazing publications pretty much weekly, every week, every weekday, I should say, where he writes on Blogger, Medium, Substack, Tumblr, Vocal, Many Stories, and for other places. And he really just highlights the independent podcasters. So thank you, Frank, for everything you do with Earworthy and for recognizing all of us in the first Earworthy Independent Podcast Awards. If you'd like to read more, please head to medium.com/EAR hyphen WORTHY. Thanks again and enjoy this episode.
3-4 weeks in, it was literally survival. Like, it was just like, how do I get from moment to moment without losing it? And I remember, like, this is 5 weeks, 6 weeks later, two months later, I'd be on a call with clients, and clients are all very nice and sweet, and they mean really well, and they don't want to see me suffer, but I would be bawling through client meetings. Like, there's just no way around. And then we would sit quietly. And so when I asked my family for help, I said, "Hey, I'm downstairs crying. It'd be great if one of you would come down and check on me." And they did really well, diligently, for a little while. But then they stopped. And I think most of the world moves on. And what I learned was, it's up to me to seek out these opportunities. It's up to me to find the places where I can communicate about it.
As we go through life, we all experience moments of loss and grief. And these experiences can be incredibly isolating, and they leave us feeling alone and unsure of how to move forward. But as our guest reminds us today, there's hope even in the pain and the loss. Jonathan DeYoe is a financial advisor. He's an author and also a fellow podcaster who's experienced his fair share of loss in life. His journey of grief and healing began when he lost his brother, which turned his world upside down. But through his journey, he learned valuable lessons about the power of community, the importance of gratitude, and the impact that loss can have on our lives. In this episode of the Life Shift podcast, Jonathan shares his personal story of loss and hope. He talks about the experience of navigating grief and the lessons that he learned along the way. We dive deep into the importance of community and the power of gratitude in overcoming loss. His story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest moments of life, there's always a way forward. Throughout the episode, Jonathan talks about reaching out to others for support and the power of gratitude in finding hope and healing. Jonathan's story is sure to inspire and encourage anyone who's experienced loss in their life. As always, I hope that this episode of the Life Shift podcast will leave you feeling inspired and encouraged. I would like to give a big thank you to Mickey, Tracy, and Emily for sponsoring 2 episodes of the show each month on the Patreon. Your support through this Patreon tier allows me to grow the show, continue bringing these important stories to the public, and find new ways to reach new ears. So thank you. Information about the Patreon can be found in the show notes. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode of the Life Shift podcast with my guest, Jonathan DeYoe. I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that have changed lives forever. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Life Shift podcast. I am here with Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
I am well, and that is going to be my answer today. Before we started recording, we went through this. How are you? And I said good, and then I was like, wait, I'm not really good.
And then you were honest, which I appreciate.
And then I was honest. You know, I think I talk to a lot of people about this, of how in a lot of ways, so many of us are so conditioned by society to just respond with what we think the other person might want to hear. I don't know if you ever encounter this.
Or we just have a stock response that we use for every time somebody asks us, how you doing? I'm great. How you doing? I'm great. How you doing? I'm great. You know, without even thinking about it.
Right. I think it's not even I don't even think I think about it. I think it's just like a programmed response. You know, that kind of leads into why the Life Shift podcast exists for me is, you know, the story starts for me when my mom died when I was a kid, and certainly that changed my life. But after that moment, I felt that no one around me was talking about anything that I needed them to talk about. And I didn't hear that I was going to be okay, like from other people that had gone through something similar. And so when I had the opportunity to start this podcast and start talking to people, what I'm finding in reviews or behind the scenes messages from listeners is that, wow, I really needed to hear what so-and-so said, because I thought I was the only person that's ever gone through this experience. And I think it's because, like, sometimes we're just so isolated in our bubble and we only want other people to know the bright, shiny pieces of us.
That's right.
You know, and so the opportunity to have conversations like we're going to have today of things that aren't, you know, typically something that we put out there in a big way are probably the most impactful.
Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll get to this in a second, but when my brother died, I tried for 3 weeks to just deal with it, you know, bury it, you know, manage it myself. And I finally said to my family, hey, I need you to check on me, because I'm sitting down in the basement crying all by myself. Like, and I'm doing it every day, and I'm doing it for hours and hours and hours. And it's just, you know, this won't end well. So I need support and help. And I searched the internet. I searched for podcasts. I downloaded books, you know, Audible books. And I just found out just anywhere I could go where people were talking about it. And it was almost morbid. Like, it was almost, you know, I was like, wow, am I okay? Because I'm really seeking out some dark stuff. But I needed it. Like, that's how I went through it. And I tried to hide it. I tried to not share it. And then, you know, shortly thereafter, I started being on podcasts about it and talking about it. And then I got so many messages, like just like you're saying, people heard it and they said, Jonathan, I had no idea. I lost my brother 10 years ago. I bottled it up. And I was so nice to hear your story and blah, blah, blah. And you never know who you're going to touch by just being authentic and being honest with this stuff. Because we all go through it. It's just, pain exists. Like, let's all suffer together.
Let's all suffer together. No, I mean, you're right. And good for you. We will get into the details of your story, but good for you for speaking up, for advocating for yourself, because I think that is probably one of the hardest things for people to do, especially in that state. I think, again, we're conditioned to I don't know if we're supposed to believe that we, well, that too.
Up. That's what I
man up.
Train. Man up, which is bullshit, yeah. But sorry.
Right. And no, you're fine. And also, like, I think sometimes we feel like we should be able to solve it all ourselves.
Yep.
Like we're some kind of professional in every aspect of the world and being, that we should be able to fix it. So good for you. I think that is really admirable, because so many people struggle on that journey to even say it out loud and admit that, like, I can't do this on my own. So kudos to you for being able to do that, because that's big. And that is manning up, like personing up. You were just like, hey, I need help. I can't do it myself. So anyway, I think that's fascinating. And you already blew me away in that one statement, because so many people can't do that. I couldn't do it. I mean, I was a kid, but it took me 20 years to be like, someone help me.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was fixing it and I was just pushing it down. So thank you for sharing that. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about who you are, just so we get an understanding of where you are now, but then paint the picture of what your life was like leading up to this moment that you just mentioned a little bit of.
I've been a financial advisor for 25 years. Today, I'm still a financial advisor, but I'm not running my own company. So 2 years ago, within 6 months after Dave died, I had merged my firm into a larger firm. And leading up to Dave's death, June 17th of 2021, the day before his 45th birthday, we had lots of plans that we were going to do things together. Like, I've been running a financial planning practice for 20 years. It was an independent practice. I had 8 employees. It had grown to the point where, like, I was no longer doing the thing that I was good at. I was managing an enterprise and managing people and, thinking about tech stacks and things I didn't want to do. And so my brother and I were working on a way to bring him on to manage all that stuff. He has an MBA from Cal. He's the smartest guy I've literally ever known in my life. And so we had all these plans, and we had planned that in January of 22, he was going to come on and be the CEO of the firm. And we had gone down this road before. I think it was in 2004. We started a separate company. We called it Workers Financial. The whole point was to provide an educational resource and sort of a planning resource for people that didn't have access to what I did. And he's worked in that space his entire career. He's worked at, lending, digital credit cards, digital debit cards, digital education platforms, his whole career. And so it made a lot of sense for us to come together. We're working on how to do it. We made the decision. We're all happy. Hey, when your last set of stock vests, you're going to come on board and you're going to run the show. And I'm just going to go back to being an advisor. And that was going to be, just awesome. In 2019, late 2019, we all know that the pandemic hit. And I've had friends, I've had lots of clients, I've been active in my community. So, I know a lot of people, but when the pandemic hit, my entire circle collapsed. Like everyone's did. I mean, this isn't unique. It collapsed to the clients I saw on Zoom, my immediate family, and my brother and his family. And my brother and his 2 kids, and myself and my 2 kids, we would go and meet at a park, and we'd kick a soccer ball back and forth. We'd keep our distance. In our early days, we'd wear masks, we'd keep our distance, we'd be safe, all that kind of stuff. And he was the only contact outside of my immediate family that I had during the pandemic. Even before that, he was my most contacted person outside my family. He was my best friend. He was my greatest support, everything in my life. And when COVID hit, everything kind of coalesced around he and his family and his boys. So lots of very, very, very close relationship, my best friend in the world, lots of plans for the future. June of 2021, I go back to South Dakota to see. It's where I'm from. My dad's turning 80. And so I'm like, hey, Dave, let's, come on back to South Dakota with us. Let's celebrate my dad's 80th birthday. Let's do it together. He's like, yeah, that's a great idea. He's going to do it. And then at the last minute, he decides not to. He decides he's going to stay. And he stays here. He goes to the beach. And when he goes to the beach, he drowns. He gets caught in a riptide and he doesn't make it out. I get a call from his wife, and there's a song that I really love by the Grilly Men that's called Nothing Left. And it's about receiving the phone call. And I loved it before Dave died, but it's receiving the phone call and what goes on internally when you get the negative news, or you're starting to anticipate the negative news. I got a call from Judy, and she said, hey, something's wrong. Dave, water, beach, hold on, I got to go. They're pulling him out now. And so I was like, oh shit. I hung up the phone. I had no idea what was happening. I went out. You see the door right there. I walked out the door and I just screamed in the hallway, just knowing that something bad was going to come out of this. And I came back and I sat down and I got a call from Judy and I'm like, okay, tell me what's up. And we're taking him to the hospital. You know, their life support is there. We're trying to revive. These words pop into my head, and then like 20 minutes later, I get a call from the hospital. Dave didn't make it. The boys are suffering this, that, the other thing. Next step, you know, she's crushed. What's going to happen next? And that's for me. That's the shift. That's the moment where all the stuff that you were afraid of and all the stuff that you had hoped for and all the stuff that was pending or that was there in front of you just disappears. And like you just lose all ground. You know, I just don't know what's up and what's down. Within a month, you know, we already mentioned, it took me 3 weeks to sort of begin to deal with it, with people and the support. Within about a month, I had made the decision that by the end of the year, I wasn't going to be managing my own firm anymore. I wasn't going to be driving. One of the big differences between Dave and I'm the older sibling. I am left brain, list oriented, driven, always on time. 3 minutes early is late. You know, I'm that guy. You know, great morning routine. You know, I bought into, you know, how do I optimize and do everything right? Right. My brother wasn't that way at all. he showed up late to his own wedding. He showed up late to every soccer game, just late all the time. Brilliant guy, managed people really well, love him to death, but not left brain, not list oriented, he just kind of took life as it came. And so I started adopting some of these behaviors, some of these, I want to be less stressed. I want to be less worried. I want to be more available. I want to be more open to changes, to things that are outside my control. I want to be more present for the people in my life. And so that started for me with being present with my own grief and pain and managing it and just being public with it and being open with it. And when people ask questions, just answering that question as directly as I possibly could. You know, Jonathan, what's going on with you? And just being, you know, this is what's going on with me.
Were you not like that before?
No, I would never rely. I'm from South Dakota. I'm a business owner. Self-reliance is a thing for me. And I was raised to be self-reliant. I was raised to support others when they needed help. I was never shown how to ask for help. And I had no idea how to do it. I just knew, you know, it took me a few weeks to realize that this was, I mean, unsustainable doesn't begin to cover what I was attempting to do on my own. There's just no way I would dig out of the hole that I was digging for myself if I kept trying to do it this way. And some of that is, you know, I've got 25 years of meditation and 25 years of Buddhist training. And that's, you know, my grad school work was I understand that we all sicken and we all die and we all age. I understand that. That's a great intellectual thing. And I think I've been present for people when it's happened to them, but you know, after it's happened to me, I know that I was never present enough. I never got it.
It was like a checklist. You knew the order of things that you were supposed to do.
Yep.
I get it. I mean, I often talk to people about how so many of us grew up understanding that there was some kind of checklist for us. Like we were supposed to do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And it was always go, go, go. I need to achieve, you know, the next promotion. I mean, it's probably how you got into running your own company and getting away from all the things you like to do because you felt like I have to have a company and it has to be bigger and it has to be better and I have to keep doing these things. And something as tragic as losing someone so close to you, I had a similar experience when I watched my grandmother pass away. It was like, wait, why am I doing all of this?
Yes.
Like, is it actually bringing me to happiness, success? Sure, I have all these things. Sure, I am checklist happy, but am I really?
Right.
You know, did you have a very similar feeling? It sounds like you kind of had this like axis shift, if you will, of where your life kind of was like, wait, hold on a second.
For me, I mean, this 2 years later, like we just had the 2-year anniversary this last June 17th. And I've been trying to rebuild those morning routines. So I do think that there's value in structure. I do think there's value in achievement. It's just no longer, I would actually do this thing every year where I would say, these are my 6 most important values. And achievement was always, number 1 on the list. Now it's like not on the list. Now it's number 6. Now it's, it falls off the list pretty easily, but it was always number 1. And it was number 1 because that's what I thought it had to be. Like I thought in order for me to be successful, I had to have achievement on my list. Success for me was, and this goes way back to like when I'm growing up as a kid, we didn't have anything. So success for me was having things. Like success was not having to say no to a purchase, not having to say no to an experience, not having to say no for financial reasons.
And maybe even for other people to see that.
Yeah, no, of
right?
course.
Because a performative, like, look, guys,
I'm successful. Yeah.
I'm no longer that person, because we're introduced to that shame through other people as well. But 100% relate to that experience. But you said your brother was the opposite of that. Did you guys grow up? I mean, I'm assuming you guys grew up together in the same place, but you were conditioned one way and he was like, no way, I'm not doing that.
So this is where you get into that nature and nurture. I think he is just. I think we both had the same conditioning. We're both South Dakota. We're both, we both worked when we were kids and stuff. I think I was the oldest, so when my dad had a project that needed doing at 6 a.m., he didn't wake Dave up. He wake me. He awakened me, and I went out with him, and we did the project. When it was time to mow the yard, maybe this time I would do it, and the next time Dave would do it. But it was something additional, it would fall to me. And so I was the one that got up and did a lot of the, my dad owned some apartments. And so when the basement flooded, it was me at 5 a.m., out there, with a bucket, and not my brother. So there's a lot of that is learned, but I think just baseline, and I can see this in my own kids. Like I have one kid who is, driven, list, boom, 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 executive functioning, all that kind of stuff. And one kid that's less that. And so there is some natural tendencies. And I think Dave's natural tendency was just to be relaxed about everything. And he wasn't afraid. Like I was afraid. Like I was afraid of not having enough and not being successful and running out of money. And I was always afraid of that.
Did it stress you out when he did the things that were not like how you would do it? Because it would stress me out.
It didn't stress me out until he died, because he didn't leave the family the most well prepared. Like the reality is, and part of my own thinking with merging my firm into a larger firm is, wow, what if this happens to me? This can happen. What if this happens to me? My team, my clients, my family, they all rely on me showing up every day, healthy and strong, to do these things. And so I couldn't deal with that stress anymore. Like I needed to have a larger package. I needed to have something that would take that off of my plate. And super happy with that result. It would have been a lot more fun to have him here and do this thing together that we were embarking upon. I've sort of tried to take some of the things we were going to do together and do them myself, but I just don't have the expertise. I don't have the same strong suits that he does. His strengths were, he was just brilliant.
Well, I think we also you're very early in the grief journey itself, right? And I think we try to pull in those things I think it's part of healing. I think we want to, honor the people around us or do certain things because so-and-so would have done that or would have wanted us to do that. And I think that's a normal part of that. But, we are who we are, but it sounds like this moment in your life, knowing him for so long, but also losing him so suddenly triggered a change in you, like nearly overnight. Mm-hmm. I mean, you said it was a couple weeks before you started asking for help. Once you started asking people for help, how did that journey unfold for you?
Well, this ties into something you just said, actually, and it's I think this is really, really important. You said you're early in your journey with grief now, and I'm so glad you said it that way, because I mean, I seek out these opportunities because I love to talk about it. Like, it is fulfilling to me to have a tear, to have a memory, to have a conversation, to do it means so much to me. 3, 4 weeks in, it was literally survival. Like, it was just like, how do I get from moment to moment without losing it? And I remember, like, this is 5 weeks, 6 weeks later, two months later, I'd be on a call with clients, and clients are all very nice and sweet, and they mean really well, and they don't want to see me suffer, but I would be bawling through client meetings. Like, there's just no way around. And then we would sit quietly, and so when I asked my family for help, I said, "Hey, I'm downstairs crying. It'd be great if one of you would come down and check on me." And they did really well, diligently, for a little while. But then they stopped, and I think most of the world moves on. And what I learned was, it's up to me to seek out these opportunities. It's up to me to find the places where I can communicate about it. I have a good friend from college, and she lost her daughter 6, 7 years ago to a drunk driver, and we reconnect. She's always been really good at staying connected. I'm not very good at staying connected. And so she reached out, and I finally said, "Hey, let's talk about this. Like, I'm sorry I wasn't there when this happened for you, and this is I'm learning how big a deal this really was." And we just had this great conversation. And anytime one of us is feeling sad and need to talk about something, we just call the other one up and chat these things through. But the journey, it's ongoing. You keep having to ask for help, and then at the same time, I like, my daughter's 15. I don't want to ask her for help. She knows. She's very empathetic. She knows, but it's like, I want her to live her life and not worry about her dad's grief. Part of me is like, yeah, 2.5 years later, 2 years later, it's not that I should be over it. Over it's not the goal, but it's incorporated into my life now. So I fall apart a lot less. And I have a lot less people checking on me on a regular basis. And they don't need to check on me, but it's good to check in, and it's good to have this opportunity, and it's good to seek out other things like this. And I keep doing it.
I mean, I think that, like I said earlier, I think just the fact that you told people you need that, because I think a lot of us, when we're in our grief journeys, we kind of have this expectation. I don't know if you did, but I definitely had this expectation that other people were just going to do it because they innately knew that I needed something. They knew that I was performing. They knew that I was faking this journey of my life because, I was 8 when my mom died, and everyone around me, no one had the tools. It was the late 80s. No one really talked about this. No one really knew how to help an 8-year-old that just lost his primary parent and then suddenly had to move states and live with the other parent that was, present in his life, but not. I don't know why I'm talking about myself in third person, but like, as an 8-year-old, I felt that I was the one that needed to prove to everyone that I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was pulling in, and this is probably way different for someone as an adult, but part of that was pulling in, if I don't do that, someone else is going to abandon me, because that's what my mom did in my mind, right? Like, she died. That was abandonment to me as that young kid who didn't understand things. And so most of my life was performative, and going back to this idea that I just expected, I think I expected people to fix it for me, or at least ask me about it, or talk to me about her, or how do you feel? But instead it was like, let's make him happy, take him to Disney, buy him presents. Like, it was very much that we don't want to see him sad. So if he's happy, he's not sad, kind of thing. And so for you to tell people, look, I'm barely holding it together right here, or today's good, but check on me tomorrow.
Yep.
That's big. And I hope, if nothing else, someone listening to this is like, oh, I can do that, and realize that they should feel comfortable asking the people around them to check in on them and make sure they're okay.
I have this, and this is something that I talk about this all the time, because there's this woman who I knew her husband for many, many years. And then I knew them when they got married. And she, like day 2, like right after Dave died, she sent me via text just a heart, just a picture of a heart. And she said, hey, no need to respond. I just want you to know I'm thinking of you. Like, and 2 days later, another heart. Day later, another heart. 5 days later, another heart. It's 2 years later. I got a heart last week. Like she has never let up. And every time I think of it, just like being held in somebody's mind is so powerful. Knowing that someone is remembering right alongside you. Like the 2-year anniversary came and I got like multiple hearts for 3 days in a row. Hey, I know this is a tough time for you. I want you to know that we're thinking of you. And meanwhile, by the way, anybody can do that. Like if you know somebody that's going through a loss or pain or difficulty, just sending them a foot of a heart and saying something like that is just, it meant everything to me. It meant everything to me. Yeah.
I think as someone that is not currently, like if we're in a space where we're not currently actively grieving someone else, I think we're in this or of this feeling that the other person wants us to give them some advice or some way to fix it, when we know that there really isn't anything that someone could say to you in your moment beyond, hey, I'm here.
Yep.
If you need anything, if you need a roll of toilet paper, you need like whatever you need, let me know. I'm here. I'm here to hold a space for you. And I think that's all we need. But I think there's something where we like want to fix it in some way because it makes us anxious. Like we're like, someone's not feeling their self today because of this. How do I fix it? But really the best thing is what this person did for you is just like, hey, I'm over here. And that opened the door. If you ever needed anything, I'm sure you could have called or sent another text back.
It reminds me of that. There's that cartoon, Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, right? And they're talking about pain and grief. And I think Pooh is asking him, so what's up? And he's like, I'm just here with you. I'll just be here. We'll sit together. And that was it. Just that whole sitting together. I think as kids, when we have kids, we raise kids to say, oh, there's this negative emotion. We'll distract with this other emotion. You're throwing a fit on the floor of the grocery store. We're going to distract you with something else. And that's actually distracting is a parenting method. Like it's something we learn how to do. It distract people from their pain, distract people from acting out. Right. And I think that because of that and so many other things of the way we live our lives here, Western world, it happens to all of us, but we sweep it under the rug so quickly. And if we just, and there's tons of books and tons of research on the benefits of the community and of support systems and of just showing up for people that are, there's so much out there about it that I had never read or looked at until Dave died. And then I started digging into it and reading it. And I'm like, how come none of this is more well known? Like we don't want to practice this, but we need to practice this because this is coming. It's coming for every single one of us. And if you can go through you can never manufacture it. You can never create the feelings. You can't do that. But you can imagine, what would it be like if this person close to me, something happened? You can imagine, and you can imagine what would be supportive in that space. And it's never being alone. It's never alone. It's always being with other people. It's always those relationships. And that's the thing that Dave did really well was relationships. Like he hosted things at his house all the time. He had people there all the time. At his services, there were 400 people there. Everyone was there. The soccer club was there. The suicide hotline was there. All the kids' friends were there. The parents that he coached were there. Everyone was there. Everyone was there. And it was just his company was there. Many companies in a row were there. Employees were there. And it's because he built these relationships and he didn't show up on time and he didn't. And I learned that those relationships really, really, really important by losing that one relationship, right? That I had one tight, warm, supportive, great relationship, and that's gone. I have to identify, oh my God, there's other relationships that are languishing that I can care for and I can build on. And that's been for me, that's been the biggest struggle, feeling like I'm not replacing him. I'm actually just building new relationships and holding space for them and their stuff, and they're holding space for me and my stuff, and we come together, and it's I have a lot more close friends now than I did before.
It sounds like he left a legacy of this idea that mostly all that matters is these relationships that you have with people around you. Yes, the structure, yes, the list, those things matter in a lot of areas, whether that is like this end is going to come for all of us. So there is a list of things that we need to do and make sure that we're doing. But usually what's not on the list is curating these relationships, as you talk about, beyond whatever the check mark is. Like, I know this person, we can all do these things, but actually these heartfelt show up for people in any kind of moment relationships seem to be important. But I think going back to your point about there's like so much research out there, there's so many books, there's so many memoirs, there's so many things that we can go to. I think intellectually all the stuff in those books makes sense. Like you mentioned early in our conversation, like going through 25 years of lessons of meditation and doing all this stuff, like it all intellectually makes sense. But I think until you're in, I don't even know if I could imagine what that feeling would be like losing someone, like until you go through it. In my circumstance, I was blessed for such a shitty grief journey. Hear me out. But, my mom died when I was 8. So it took me 20 years to find the strength, if we want to call it that you had to ask other people, like, all right, I've tried. I can't, I need some help here. I need to do these things. And, so 20 years, maybe even more, early 30s, finally got this grasp on, and people hate that I say this, but I kind of closed the door on the grief of losing my mother because I lost her so early that at this point in my life, she's more of just like an idea of a person, because I don't really remember her. But failing through that journey for me, when my grandmother, who kind of took over the role of mother for me, when she was diagnosed with lung cancer, I felt like super prepared. Like I knew time was limited. I knew exactly what I needed to do that I wasn't able to do the first time. And so like that really terrible journey gave me such like unbelievably beautiful moments at the end of my grandmother's life.
Wow.
So it's like, like sometimes you can't imagine, like if my mom had not died and then my grandmother died, I don't know that I would have been able to have that final conversation of like where nothing was left unsaid, where people are just like usually save for the funeral or save for like the eulogy kind of moment. And it was like, we had the eulogy face to face and we shared everything that mattered about our lives together face to face. I spent the last 96 hours of her life by her bed at hospice house, like waiting for her to be ready to move on to whatever the next place is for her. And had I had the tools as an 8-year-old to like grieve my mom properly, I don't know that I would have done that, this later in life. And so for me, I feel super grateful, I guess, now for that journey and understanding. And maybe there's a part of you that like having the life that you had with Dave for so long in the way that it was served its purpose so that, in this tragedy, you're able to reflect on that and the things that you might want to do differently. I know that was a really long way to get to this point, but I kind of look at it that way.
There's I'm not going to be able to pull I think it's a Tom Stoppard play. I'm not sure. But after Dave died, and probably 6 months after Dave died, I have a close friend who's the director of Shotgun Players in Berkeley, and he sent me this piece. and it's about a couple who loses a child, and it's the dialogue around the loss of the child, and there's this phrase that's like, the child's purpose is not to stay. The child's purpose is to be until it's not, and to be everything it's supposed to be until it can't be that anymore. And it's the child's purpose isn't to be here forever. No one's purpose is to be permanent. Nothing is, right. And in this dialogue, it's this admission of the beauty and wonder of the child's life, and also the acceptance and the allowing of the child's death. Like, this is how it goes sometimes. Like, it is not strange. And to this day, like, I write about, I have this weekly newsletter, and I write about what I'm going through, and the kinds of emotions that I'm feeling around the loss of Dave. And I wrote about it 2 weeks ago with the anniversary, right? And I write about the regaining of the meditation practice, because I lost it entirely after he died. And I write about, where I am in sort of the recovery phase of this whole process. But it's, at some point, there's an admission of, it's hard to say this, but there's an admission of, it's beautiful, just as it was. 3 of my really close friends all knew Dave well. We played D&D together way back in the day. We've come together kind of as a men's group after the fact. There's been 4 of us that have just, gone deep with our emotions about brothers and siblings and parents, and who loved us and who didn't when we were young, and all this kind of stuff. All 3 of them have, distant relationships with their brothers. One of them hates their brothers. One of them was beaten up incessantly by their brothers, and the other one just kind of hasn't met. So I have this just deep bond that none of them even had. I was so lucky to have that.
You still are.
I still am. Yeah.
I mean, it's still part of your life. Yeah. I people ask the question, like, if you could go back and change time or change events in time, for me, 30 plus years, 34 years later, I wouldn't, and that's like so crappy to say, because I wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be this version of me. And, there are things that have existed in my life that wouldn't have existed had she not passed away. And, as you were saying that, I was thinking one of the worst things that people tried to make me feel better after she died was they would say, well, she completed what she needed to on Earth, and so she moved on. And I was like, I'm 8, first of all.
Yeah, not completed.
Not completed. She was 32. She was not, and it's like, and then when I turned 32, I was like, well, this is young, So, that's really not helpful. So if anyone's listening, please don't tell kids that, at least. I don't think that's a very helpful thing for kids to go through.
Did you hear a lot of that? Did you hear a lot of those other kind of phrases that just to help? I was astounded at how bad.
People don't know what to say.
Saying nothing about the person trying. Like, they're just trying, and it's just awful. Like, what do you say? What do you say? Oh my God. But so many people said just dumb things, but they just don't know.
They don't. And it goes back to that thing. I don't know if I could picture it. I don't think I could muster up enough fake feeling of like empathy unless I went through it.
Right.
And now that I've gone through like a sudden death and a prolonged one, I feel like I could sit and hold space for someone. I feel like I could be there and not say dumb things. I might say some dumb things, but I think there's a time and place for that. But yeah, I got a lot of weird things, and I was just like, I didn't. And at 8, you don't know that they're trying. You don't know that they're just trying to do their best. You're just like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. I can't believe this, I didn't bring this up already, but
one of the biggest shifts that's occurred for me is about a year ago. This is about a year after he died. I decided that I was going to become a meditation teacher. And so I joined this program, Jack Kornfield, Tara Brock's meditation teacher training program. It's a 2-year program. And my practice is now deeper than it's been in a long, long, long time. I actually sat with my first, 7-day silent retreat,
Wow.
and I've embraced this, and the chapter or the section we're going through right now is dealing with pain. It's the tools I didn't have when Dave died. And so I couldn't, I'd sit down and I'd cry. I'd sit down and I'd cry. I'd sit down and I'd cry. I tried to meditate. I couldn't meditate. I just constant overwhelm all the time. And I'm now today, 2 years, learning the tools that enable me to hold my own space for this kind of nutty thing that comes up, and recognize where it is in the body, and recognize, and then only take a bit of it, avoid overwhelm, take a bit of it, and then shift off to something that's lighter. And you can do this in your own head. And I'm learning how to do this with other people, how to work with people through the pain. And it's not that I hope any pain on anybody, but I'm really looking forward to the ability to hold that space when somebody needs that space held, because I think that we need more people like that are just there. Hey, how can I get it? This sucks. This is awful. It's nothing I can say. I can just sit here with you for a while.
Do you think that if you had read that or done that segment of the training before he had passed, that you would have been able to? Or do you think that you just kind of needed that experience and that part of your journey?
It's a good question, and I think about it, but I think probably it would have been, because I think it's a practice. It's a practice, and it gets better over time. And had I done it for 20 years, then I would have the practice, and I would have those tools, and I might be able to use them to take off little bits of the pain. I might be able to, probably not right away, probably not with any kind of speed, because it's a practice, and because you do it on a daily basis. Yeah, you would have the tools, and they would be muscle memory, or mental memory would exist in that space. It still would have obliterated me. Maybe I would have needed less help, but I will never know.
Yeah. I just think, like, you can never prepare yourself for that much pain. And so, even if we had the tools, I don't know, like, that's the most immense amount of pain that you've ever had. So even a practice, like you point out, it's still going to debilitate you in some kind of way.
For sure.
I don't think there's it's not like an instant Band-Aid. I don't think there is one. And here's a negative part about being a human, but I think we're all going to have to go through this, and we're all going to have to go through this immense pain in some capacity, and then learn about ourselves after the fact, if we're lucky, to be able to do, like you said, to be able to hold that space, or knock away at the pain a little at a time. But we're all gonna, I mean, I hate saying these words out loud, but if we're lucky, we're going to go through all of these experiences to learn more about ourselves.
Yeah.
And that sounds terrible, right? I don't know that we're lucky to be in a lot of pain. I don't know that we're lucky to face a lot of tragedy, but it sure does add a lot of layers to us as humans. And it sure does create a different version of us that, if we do it right, then maybe, it's all worth it in the end. I hate saying that, though, out loud. But here we are on a podcast for everyone to hear.
Right. I mean, the reality is we do all go through it. And I remember when I did my first, when I just signed up for the program, I did my first retreat. It wasn't a silent retreat. It was an educational retreat. And the number of people in the program that had experienced like massive loss, it was 70% plus. It was there. Everyone there was there because they had gone through something, and they were trying to find a way to manage the thing that they went through. I was in good company. I remember one woman's husband was an ER doc during COVID. And he just was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, just constantly on. And he said he committed suicide. He like, I can't deal with this, committed suicide. And she's like, she didn't know what to do with that, emotion that came out of that. And so she's like, all right, I'm not a meditator. I'm going to become a meditator to see if there's a way to manage the stuff inside my own head. But so many people, we have to go through it, and the thing that worries me, and maybe you can actually comment on this, is I worry. One of the things I lost when I lost my brother was a partner to go through the loss of my parents, with a partner with whom I would be going through the loss of my parents, because he's my only sibling. My dad's 82. And so I know that that's coming. And I don't think the loss of my brother is going to prepare me for the loss of my father. I just think they're going to be different. I think the emotions are going to be different. And maybe I'll have some kind of ability to manage that I didn't have before. But I think I'm going to be crushed by it.
I mean, rightfully so. I think a loss is a loss. I think I don't, we can scale them however we want, but every relationship is different. And I don't know. I can comment on it from the aspect of losing my mom so early and just like struggling so much. I felt very prepared to grieve my grandmother when she died. Now, I don't think my family members that were also there were prepared, because they also lost my mom. My parents were divorced, but they also lost someone that they loved. My grandmother was my dad's mom, but she was really close with my mother. To the day she died, she never talked about losing my mom. She never grieved that. She never went through that. My dad, I don't know, maybe he's gone through his own journey, but his response to my grandmother dying, she died in 2015, has been significantly different than mine. I really feel that after my grandmother died, I took some time off of work because I knew that's what I needed. I jumped into it. I did, whatever I needed to do using the tools that I had. And a couple months later, the only thing I was remembering were the good times. And it sounds really cheesy and whatnot, but the people around me were reminding me, like, remember in hospice house when this happened? Or do you remember when, she got really bad, or when she fell? And I'm like, not really. I don't really think about those times anymore because I was able to process that. So I don't know. I think you can feel like you're going through a grieving process with someone, but I mean, how you felt after you lost your brother was probably different than how other people felt. Even your immediate family members probably grieve differently than you did, right? And so it would be nice to have someone by your side, though, to know that they were maybe feeling something at the same time. But I think if you have this feeling that he's inside you now, I mean, you probably carry a lot of Dave in you and with you, and honor him in ways of even merging your company, stepping into your purpose again, right? With your company and the thing, or what you do for your company and your podcasts and the things that bring you joy would probably make Dave very happy.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I don't know him, but it feels like you, at that tragic moment, you did what you could to absorb some of the pieces that you love so much about him and carry that with you.
It's absolutely the case. And to the point where people were like, why are you, Jonathan, you're changing. What is this about? I'm like, well, I thought I was right. And now I think that, maybe Dave had some good points with how to live, right? It's changing, but it's adopting maybe a more middle of the way, part of the path.
Or maybe it was always there, and maybe you were just so focused on the other things, like you were so focused on, you probably had it all along. You both come from the same, space, but you had your type A checklists, like you had to do it. And once in a while you get rid of them and you're like, oh, everything's still working. Everything's still functioning just fine. So maybe I don't need as many.
Yep. That's a nice lesson to learn, actually.
Yeah. Have you learned anything about Dave since his passing that you didn't know before?
There was actually something. It wasn't.
I don't mean to give out all of his dirty laundry. I meant just
No.
anything in a good way.
There was more of a. I actually don't remember there was something I noted. This is like 3 weeks ago. I was like, oh, there's this thing. And I'm right now, I'm not actually recollecting what the thing was, but yeah, it was a thing about, like, the amount of stuff he did at the house, for them, for the family, like he was everything. Like, and there's people who do it all, right? But he would literally everything. Plan the vacations. He would, I mean, which means he had to have lists somewhere. Like he had to, right? Didn't
Maybe in his head.
he? He kept them in his head. Probably he was a smart dude. But yeah, I have learned some little things here and there about him, some things that he was active in that I didn't know about. But just the volume of stuff that he was engaged in all the time was pretty impressive. And I didn't know about all that.
What have you learned about yourself since Dave died?
I don't need the lists as much. Like I can let some of the emails go. I can let I don't have to respond to everything. I can just be more relaxed about a lot of stuff, and things are okay. There's also I've also learned that I already knew I was uber responsible, but now I'm like uber responsible plus, because I feel like the family is now relies a little bit on, we're close, so we get together on a regular basis, and I sort of have to stimulate birthday celebrations for the boys, and sort of, hey, let's go do this thing, or come on, let's. So there's like more responsibility, and I thought I was going to crumble, and I figured out that I'm not going to crumble. Like I can maintain that. I can manage that.
Because Dave would want you to do that, and I think there's a piece of that comes along. I mean, I guess you just kind of said it, but I was going to say, what do you think the biggest difference between you now and previous version? Not something you learned about yourself, but just like the biggest thing that's different about you. It sounds like you really like, I mean, not to answer the question I just asked you, but it sounds like you really are in touch with yourself. You're in touch with like that inner heart centered part of you, maybe more than you used to be.
Yeah, I think, and sort of as a summary of that, it's like I can ask for help and not be afraid that people run away from me asking for help. I think that's the thing that and maybe this is a thing that I learned, maybe it's a thing that I am, but I can ask for help now. Will I?
That's huge.
A lot? Probably not, but I can if I need it.
You're not as afraid maybe as before, or, maybe it was just didn't ever happen before. And now it's like, this is a possibility, and
yeah,
nothing bad has happened when I've asked for help.
Yeah,
So I think it's okay.
There's another thing that's actually, I think, equally important, is having gone through that. I learned that I can go through pretty much anything. Like there is a reserve of, it's not strength, it's like survival. There's a reserve in there that, I'm not unflappable, but nothing matters really that much anymore. Like and that's not a negative. Like that's a positive. Things that I would have been worried about in the past, I just don't worry about. Like it just slides off. Like it doesn't affect me. Things that I might have, oh, what about that? Like I'm like, what about that? It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, close to my grandmother's final days, she told us, she said, because it was like, we were able to move her into like this, it's almost like a hospice hotel, if you
Mhm.
will. And it was mostly like my father, his brother, and their wives, and me. And we were all standing around, and pretty much right before she kind of lost the ability to have conversations, she was like, I wish I hadn't worried so much, because all that matters is love in the end. And she was just indicating that, like, at the very end, all that matters is the people that are around you.
Yep.
And that was a trigger for me. That was definitely like, oh, yeah, to your point, like, why am I worrying about where I'm going to park? Why am I worrying about if it rains, what am I going to do? Like, these things don't really matter in the end. And so it was a really important lesson. And it stinks that like that was the lesson she realized later in life, but it benefits the rest of us around her if we listen and if we're willing to listen.
If you can listen.
Which kind of brings us to like why you go on these podcasts and share this story, is that like someone out there might be feeling a certain way, and they listen to your story and they're like, oh, he's adjusted this and he's okay. Like he survived this. He had terrible days, but he's still okay. And so that's why I think it's so important for people to share their stories, because you never know what sentence is going to stick out to them.
And by the way, those people that have that experience and say, "Oh wow, he did survive this," and they want to talk about it, like I'm open. Like I think we're all going to go through it. We all need to go through it together, and I'm open to have the conversations.
It's so important. I think, I don't know, maybe you found this as well, that sharing your story is selfishly even more impactful for yourself, because you're able to kind of process some of those things, or at least get them out of your head.
They quickly come back. It's an opportunity to remember. It's an opportunity to talk about, and people ask different questions, and so I get to think about it a different way every time I talk about it. So it's a blessing. It's a blessing to be able to have more conversations about Dave, because frankly, the people that have been the closest to me, it's not that they aren't thoughtful or don't care. It's just they have heard it all. They've asked all the questions that they're going to ask. So for me to have a new memory or new experience I have to have the conversation with new people. And I love that. I love this. It's fantastic. What you're doing is important.
I tell others that sometimes I feel that these conversations help to heal a little bit of that 8-year-old that I didn't know still needed some healing.
Yep.
And that's a lot to admit, because earlier I said, I close the door on that, but I think there's still broken pieces of that child that, at 42 now, I'm like, oh God, those things are creeping up. But, I think these conversations, like you said, are super important. If you could go back to Jonathan receiving that call from your sister-in-law, is there anything that you could, when he hung up that phone, is there anything that you could tell or do for him that might help him in his journey forward?
Wow. In the moment of not knowing. I think the main lesson here is, no matter what happens, you can be okay. Like, it'll take work, it'll take effort. You don't know where you're going to be pulled, or what road you'll go down, but you'll be okay. And I don't know that I would have believed that, 1 week in, but 2 years in, I believe that.
He probably just needed someone to be there.
Yep.
To understand that everything was going to be quite messy. And, there was someone there that if you needed help putting the pieces back together again, that they would be there. And I think that's a good, if other people are facing something, or if someone that's facing something like that, is to just hold the space for them. Just be there. Don't give them advice. Don't give them any kind of anything really, besides that you're there and that you will be there if they need anything. And just keep that door open, because I think that's the best thing for people that have gone through this. I think that's the best thing that we could have heard. That's the best thing from your friend that sends you hearts. Text message hearts. I think just knowing that there is something and someone that is holding that space for you is just so helpful.
Yeah, it's giant.
If people want to talk to you about Dave or connect with you in any kind of way, or even see what kind of financial advice that you have, or listen to your podcast, what's the best way to get into your sphere of influence?
Yeah, the website has everything. So that's just mindful.money. It's not mindfulmoney.com. It's mindful.money. And that's got all my socials. You can connect with me via email there. It's all there, but that's the best place to find me. And I'm happy to have conversations of all those types.
Yeah, I feel like you would love to talk about money at this point, but I feel like if we brought that up, it might get a little weird. But we will share all that information in the show notes. We'll share a little bit of information, whatever fits in the characters that they give us, but we will definitely link them to your website so that they can connect with you and find you on social, or just see what you're up to. and maybe even just chat with you because they may have lost someone and they want to have, a real conversation. I know I'm the same way as you are. Like anyone, if you ever want to just like, if you need us to hold space for you, I think either of us would be available for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being a part of the Life Shift podcast. I really appreciate it. Like I've said throughout this whole thing, I think sharing these stories is just so helpful to people listening, even if they're not going through the same exact experience, right? Something you said might trigger something else that might be really helpful for them. So thank you for being a part of it.
It's meaningful for us as well, who are being interviewed. It's very meaningful, and I appreciate it very much. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. I'm terrible at compliments, so I'm just going to be like, yeah, thanks. But I will ask for compliments now. If you are enjoying this episode and you want to take a moment to rate the show and review the show, I would love it. I say this every time. I don't really know what it does, but it makes me feel good when I get them. So if you're listening and you enjoy it, please take a little time to do that. And we will be back next week with a brand new episode of the Life Shift podcast. Thanks again, Jonathan.
Thanks, Matt.
For more information, please visit www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com.